1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 1 through 6. If any of you has a dispute with another, do you dare to take it before the ungodly for judgment instead of before the Lord's people? Or do you not know that the Lord's people will judge the world? And if you are to judge the world, are you not competent to judge trivial cases? Do you not know that we will judge angels? How much more the things of this life? Therefore, if you have disputes about such matters, do you ask for a ruling from those whose way of life is scorned in the church? I say this to shame you. It is possible that there is nobody among you. Is it possible that there is nobody among you wise enough to judge a dispute between believers? Instead, one brother takes another to court, and this in front of unbelievers. So, as you could kind of maybe hear in my reading, these questions are largely rhetorical, but here we go. If any of you has a dispute with one another, I want to take this word dispute and just immediately ask the question, what kind of dispute? What does he have in view here? And as we look through the rest of it, we discover judge trivial cases, and then as well, things of this life. This word again comes up. Whoever has dispute about such matters, do you ask for a ruling from those whose way of life is scorned? And then again, dispute over here. So just looking at that, we get quite a few clues as to what's going on. I'm going to use a blue highlighter, so we have some color today. Dispute here, disputes, dispute, and we can kind of get some more context from these other words, such matters, things of this life, judge trivial cases. Okay, back to black. So the reason I do this is we're asking ourselves, what is the nature of the dispute going on in the Corinthian church? And we have that dispute mentioned 3 times, and here are our answers. We got judge trivial cases, the things of this life, and such matters, which obviously goes back to things of this life and judge trivial cases. This word trivial cases, it basically lets us know that there are kind of 2 categories of civil issue or of court issues, and you have the civil, and then you have the criminal. And what he's saying is that the church is competent to judge civil cases. That's what this word here means. The trivial cases, the things of this life, these are the civil cases. And so when we think about that, what could be in view here is some issue of money or perhaps inheritance, maybe property. But these are civil issues. Okay, so we know that civil issues are in view here. If any of you has a dispute with another, so not with an unbeliever, but with another, with a fellow church member, if one of you guys is dispute, the word that we would use is sue, and very, very common in the Greek society to sue people. So if any of you is suing or disputing with another person, do you dare take it before the ungodly for judgment instead of before the Lord's people? So we got kind of 2 groups being looked at here. We could either take it before 1, the ungodly, or 2, the Lord's people. What's interesting is this verb here, dare, is actually the very first word in the sentence. So what Paul is really saying is, how dare you? How could you take a dispute before the ungodly instead of the Lord's people? And so he begins with this. This is the emphasis. You dare. So what's being viewed is that the Corinthians have the audacity. They have the gall to do something so terrible, to take a dispute with another before the ungodly for judgment instead of before the Lord's people. We got to ask ourselves, why is this a thing that requires audacity and gall? Why would it be so awful for us to take matters before civil cases? Well, from 2 to the end here, he is now going to give us some reasons, and we can just break this down. Verses 2 through 3 are going to have an argument from the lesser to the greater. Verses 4 through 5 is going to have an argument about character. And then verses 5 through just 5 is going to be talking about wisdom. And then 6 to the end is going to be talking about shame. So we'll go through each of these arguments. I'll kind of show you how we see that. So here at verse 2, do you not know? It's a rhetorical question, that the Lord's people will judge the world. So Paul had taught the Corinthians in his time there that in the new age, after Jesus' return, the Lord's people, Christians, will judge the world. And we can look at many other passages in Revelations in the New Testament, even in the Old Testament, that talk about God's people judging the world. And this is not like so much Jesus's judgment of reward and punishment. This word judge here has more the idea of ruling and reigning. And the idea is, of course, that Jesus, the Lord himself, rules and reigns, and we, his people, because we are with him, we will rule and reign with him. And if you are to judge the world, and remember, judging is just an inextricable part of ruling and reigning. If you are to judge the world, one day you're going to judge the whole world. Are you not competent to judge trivial cases? Ask this question. If one day we will judge the world, today can't we judge the trivial? So this is called an argument from the greater to the lesser. That's what's going on in verses 2 through 3. Paul's saying, one day you're going to judge the world, then today you should at least be able to judge the trivial. And then verse 3, another question. Do you not know, again, rhetorical, just like verse 2, that we will judge angels? So not just the world, but we will also judge angels. In the age to come, the people who have been made one with Jesus, the Lord's people, will be over everything, just like Jesus is over everything. So angels will not be judging in the age to come. We will. We'll be ruling and reigning with Jesus. So if we can even judge angels, how much more the things of this life, right? Because the things of this life, these trivial issues, they are lesser than the angels. So we should, if we can do this greater thing, which is to judge angels, then we should be able to do the lesser thing. How much more the things of this life? So verses 2 through 3 give us a greater to the lesser argument. Verse 4, this one is an argument about character. Therefore, if you have disputes about such matters, these trivial issues, do you ask for a ruling from those whose way of life is scorned in the church? He's talking about the Greek judges. The Greek judges and the court system of the time was a system in which one did not win a case through justice. One won cases through influence, through power, through money. So judges didn't become judges because they loved justice. Judges became judges because they loved money. And this is a way of life that is scorned in the church. We hate when someone would mock and use justice to line their own pockets. Why in the world would you ask for a ruling from them? And the reason must be, and this is kind of a side note, but that there were probably members of the church in Corinth who were wealthier, and they were using the corrupt judicial system to take advantage of their poorer brothers and sisters in the faith. So it's just deeply shameful. This is why in verse 5 he says, I say this to shame you. I say this to shame you. Which is the opposite of what he said in chapter 4, which is, I'm not saying this to shame you. Now he does want to shame them. This issue of bringing civil issues before the worldly courts, big deal. So I'm going to give this a big red circle. This is a big deal. I say this to shame you. And then another question, is it possible that there is nobody among you wise enough to judge. Sorry, let me go back to verse 4. This way of life is scorned. What this tells us, by the way, is that the character of the judge is one of the most important pieces in a judge being able to make a good ruling. And that, when we think about God and his perfect character, it's part of what makes him the perfect judge. He knows everything. He has perfect character. He has perfect justice. But that's not true of the world. We want to be judged by judges whose way of life is good, is godly. So where should we go? Not to the world. We should go to the church. So Paul says, I say this to shame you, back to verse 5. And then now he's going to make an argument about wisdom. He says, is it possible? Is this really possible that there is nobody among you wise enough to judge a dispute between the believers? So when would we go to the local courts? If no one's wise enough. But if we have the mind of Christ and the Spirit, then there's got to be someone. There's got to be someone. That's the point of this question. There's got to be someone who is wise enough to judge. And this is especially poignant because, remember, the Corinthians boasted in their wisdom. So Paul is shaming them here. They boasted in their wisdom. And Paul's saying, okay, well, if you're wise, who's the guy wise enough to judge this dispute? And now the last kind of thing against them in verse 6. But instead of dealing with this in the church, one brother takes another to court, right? Which we've already talked about. This is for taking advantage. And then he adds this little piece right here. And this in front of unbelievers. And now, so our testimony is going to be destroyed. And this reminds me of what Paul says in Romans chapter 2, verse 24, that God is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of us. The Corinthians were already hated in the rest of their society. The Corinthian Christians, were already hated in the rest of their society, and they're just giving them all the more reason. We bring dishonor to God when we bring these matters before civil courts. So this has a lot to do with how we settle disputes within the church, but even more importantly, this section right here, between verses 2 and 3, bringing it to an end over here. This is huge, guys. This argument from the greater to the lesser, we're going to understand this, and we are going to live this to the degree that we understand the greater. We've got to know that through the gospel, we have been made one with Christ. We will rule and reign with him. And that has massive impact on how we live in the church today. Because we have the mind of Christ, because God is with us, we're capable of judging these sorts of issues. So just learn to believe this more in your life, live in that wisdom, and really just give that wisdom and show it and demonstrate it. Be discerning in your own life, in the life of your life group and of your friends. Let us, all of us, grow in applying what we one day will be to the matters that we have going on right now.